Welcome to our class. We're going to look at one important topic, which is called demand and supply. So every economist must understand what demand and supply is all about. And we're also going to understand the market mechanism. To start with, we will need to define what a market is. A market is simply a system and not a place. It's a system where buyers and sellers of a commodity or a service will interact. Then they will settle on a price. They also settle on a quantity that they will choose to sell, they'll choose to buy. So sellers and buyers can be you and me as individuals, can be firms, factories, dealers, or agents. So the word market can either be a service or a commodity or a geographical area, which would be Lusaka, Kitwe, or the Copper Belt. That is what we refer to as a market. So features of a market are, number one, it needn't be situated in a particular place or locality. Like we, using our logical thinking may. Other feature of a market is that the buyers and sellers do not always need to interact with each other. For instance, you are my client. I do not know you, I do not even know how you look like, but we are still trading virtually. So this is a marketplace. So we also need to understand the theory of demand. Demand explains the relationship between demand and the various factors that affect demand. So let me be practical. What are some of the factors that affect your demand for a particular commodity as an individual? What influences your demand for a particular item, your clothes, or what you eat?
I'm supposed to answer? That's my question?
Yes, that's the question. What determines the type of clothes you wear? What are some of the factors that affect your demand?
So some of the factors that affect my demand are my needs, my environment, my income status, all that to influence my demand.
Exactly. So demand is influenced by those factors. So we call them factors that affect demand. So you mentioned important factors. For instance, your income, you affect how much you're going to buy of a commodity or how much of a service you're going to buy from me. Your preference or your taste, right? The weather, whether it's cold or hot, right? The price of that commodity, price of the kind of commodity. It can either be a substitute good, can be complementary good. What else may affect your demand for a particular good? Advertising, how much advertising is there? Also, the population size, also the technology, and many factors that affect somebody's demand. So you must understand that demand has an inverse relationship. What does inverse mean? It means when the price of one good goes up, the quantity demanded will go down. So if you increase price from Q1 to P2, the quantity demanded will go down from Q1 to Q2. This means that expensive commodities will be demanded less of. That is what the law says. The law says for any normal good, if the price goes up, the quantity demanded will go down. Can you give an example of this scenario where the price goes up and the quantity demanded for you would go down?
What example can I give? Maybe I can talk about food. For example, potatoes. If the price is a little bit lower, on the lower side, I would definitely buy it. But like if the price goes up, I will not buy it because at the end of the day, then it's not really a necessity to me. But if the price was to be low, I would buy it because I can afford it.
Okay, that's right. So we also have supply, which is upsloping. Supply is given by a positive A plus BQ because of the positive relationship where the price of a commodity, if it goes up from P1 to P2, quantity supply will also go up from Q1 to Q2. A practical example is when government declares a good price for the farmers through FRA. More suppliers will be willing to supply more because the price is good and they'll make good money. So the supplier will always want a high price. You, the consumer, will always want a low price. So these two parties must be harmonized. So the point at which the supplier and the demand who the consumer meet is called equilibrium. Equilibrium is a point where demand meets supply. So this is called the equilibrium price because price is always on the vertical axis. This is called the equilibrium quantity because quantity is always here on the horizontal axis. So this is how we calculate the equilibrium. So the area here is called the consumer surplus. The area here is called the producer surplus. This is how these interact. There's a triangle which is catching the demand function here. You know the area of a triangle is simply half base times height. So this is the consumer surplus. The producer surplus also, we have our triangle here. So our base, our height. So suppose this was 10, this was 3, this was 8. So how do we calculate our consumer surplus? So the area here from 8 to 20, what is the length? It is 12. And the length from here to here is 10. So they're sharing the same base. The length from 3 to 8 is what? 5. So the consumer surplus in this case will be half times the base, which is what? 10, times the height, which is what? 12. So our consumer surplus is 60. Our producer surplus also half times the base, which is the same 10, the height, which is 5. So we get our 25. So this is called our consumer and producer surplus. So when we add these together, we get what we call the total surplus, which is also called the social welfare. So this is how we calculate our consumer surplus. Let's do a quick, can you remember? What did we say? that demand is affected by a number of factors. What are some of the factors that affect demand? Number one, we said what? Price of that good, the price of the substitute good, the income, the advertising level, the advertising, the weather, the tests, all these affect what? The demand. Then we say the point at which demand and supply they meet is called equilibrium. And we say the area above here is called the consumer surplus. The area below here is called the producer surplus. And these are triangles. The area of a triangle is simply given by what? Half times base times height. All right. So you say that if we add area A and area B, which is the consumer surplus plus the total producer surplus, collectively, what we get is called the total surplus. Total surplus or the social welfare. So this is what we've discussed so far. We've said the demand function is always downsloping. It is given by A minus BQ. Minus means it's a negative slope. The supply function is a positive slope. So if we're adding, this will be a positive because it is a positive slope. All right. Then if we're giving figurative examples, we have 100 minus 2Q. And if we have 10 plus 3Q. So we need to know how to plot these equations. So which one is the demand? The one with the negative. Which one is supply? The one with the positive. So how do we sketch? We put the letters on one side. So P plus 2Q is equal to 100. So what number is here? There's a 1. 1 into 100 is 100. What number is here? When the 2 came this side, it became positive. 2 into 100 is 50. Similarly, here we bring these ones on one side. P, when the 3 goes this side, it will be negative. Then we look at the numbers. Here there's an invisible 1. 1 into 10 is 10. Negative 3 into 10, negative 3.33. Okay, so now we learn how to sketch. The price is always on the vertical axis. The quantity is always on the horizontal axis. Our 0 is there. So for this function, it is a demand. So P will cut at 100. So we put 100 here. Q will start at 50. 50 somewhere there. For this one, P will cut at 10. 10 is somewhere there. And Q cut at negative 3.3. 3.3 somewhere there. Although we don't look at the negative side, we are looking at the positive quadrant. So which one is the supply? The one which is upsloping. Which one is the demand? The one which is downsloping. Are you together so far? Are you together so far?
Yes.
Okay. So now we proceed in calculating our equilibrium. Our equilibrium, we said equilibrium occurs when demand meets supply. So equilibrium is simply a point where the consumer and the buyer will agree that this is the price at which we're going to sell, and this is the quantity that I'm going to buy. So we're going to have 100 minus 2Q. That is our demand. Our supply, 10 plus 3Q. So we solve for Q. So on the 100 is this side, we're going to subtract the 10. What happens to the 2Q and this goes aside? It will be a positive. And the 3Q is already here. So we're going to divide both sides by what? 5. So if we divide both sides by 5, our Q is going to be 18. Where there is Q, put 18. This is where the 18 is coming from. Then substitute this 18 in any of these ones. So I can put 18 there. So 10 plus 3Q. So when we multiply 3 times 18 plus 10, we're going to get 54. Okay. When we get 64, 3 times 18 is 54. 54 plus 10 is 64. So this is where 64 is coming from. So suppose, how do we know where to put this 18? Because there are two functions. If I put it here, will I get the answer if I were to put it here? Yes, you can choose to put it there if you want. P is equal to 100 minus what? 2Q. So where does Q put 18? The answer will still give you 64. So it's called equilibrium. You get the same figures. All right. Now, what kind of triangles have we established? We have two triangles, consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So here we have 36. 100 minus 64, we get what? A 36. So you're getting the differences. Be careful. You need to do some mini calculations there. So here we have 36. The distance from here to here is 54. The distance from here to here is 18. 36, 18, 54, 18. Right. So this is called the consumer surplus. This is called the producer surplus. Consumer surplus is simply the price that you, the consumer, is willing to pay above the what? The equilibrium. You are being offered that this tomato is 5 kwacha. You're still able to pay 7 kwacha. And say keep change. That's it. Consumer surplus. And the producer surplus is a price below which the producer is willing to sell. Market price for tomato is 5 kwacha, but you can sell at 3 kwacha because you have mass production. So in this case, we just calculate our consumer and producer surplus using the formulas that we just established. So in this case, our consumer surplus and the producer surplus have the same formula. All right, so consumer surplus is half pH. Our base is 18, and our height is what? 36. Producer surplus is also half pH. Our base is 18, and our height is what? 54. So when you compute that, we get 324. Then here, you get 486. When you add them, consumer surplus plus producer surplus, the total you get is 810. So this is called the social welfare. Now, these are the computations that you're going to expect under this topic. we mentioned to say there are different types of goods that we need to know. It's what we call a complementary good. It's what we call a substitute good. There's what we call an inferior good. It's what we call normal good. It's what we call a necessity. It's what we call public good. What we call merit good. There are many types of goods. Okay, so can you try to identify any of them and explain to me what type of goods they are? Any good according to your understanding? So let me start with a complementary good. What do you think a complementary good is? What do you think a complementary good according to your own?
A complementary good on my side, I think it's more like a gadget, like a watch. Yeah.
Okay. So a complementary good, it's like a watch that complements your looks.
Yes.
Yes. What is a substitute good? What's a substitute good? Let's use your own thought. You're doing fine.
On my side, I think the substitute good is a product that a customer may use for the same purpose. Let me say you want to buy Coke in a shop, and then you find that there's no Coke. You can always substitute it. You buy maybe Pepsi, because those things, they taste one and the same. That's what I think on my side.
Okay, exactly. All right. So you have an idea of what we're talking about. So let's go through what these types of goods are. So we have a substitute good, which is simply a good that can be used with equal ease. It's a competing good. It's a good that you can substitute one for the other. For instance, Coke and Pepsi, so that's the same. Or tea and coffee. So the demand for such happens as follows. If the price of this substitute falls, it causes the demand to increase for the other good. For instance, Stakenico and Freshview. If you discover that the prices for Stakenico go up, you demand more or what? Freshview. Complementary goods, on the other hand, are goods whose utility depends on the other. They can only work together, like car and fuel, pen and ink. Without the other, one is useless. And so these ones have an inverse relationship. They have a negative relationship. Why? Because if there is an increase in demand for, this is a price fall in a motorbike, meaning the demand will increase, causing the demand also for petrol to increase. So these ones have a negative relationship, where one is going up, the other one is going down. So the other factor that affects demand is what? Consumers' income. So if your income goes up, you definitely want to buy more of a commodity. If your income goes down, you buy less of a commodity. So this is the direct relationship that income should have normally. However, there are a few goods that do or behave And like, if you have income, you buy less of that good. Do you know any examples of such goods, which or kind of negative? Goods that you would demand less of as your money goes up. Do you know of any such goods?
What's your question again?
What type of goods do we demand less of as our income goes up? For instance,
The best example I can give maybe is Millie Meal. Don't you think so?
no.
Yeah.
Yes, because when you got
Yeah, Millie
money,
Meal, because Millie Meal, when the demand will go, how can I say it? The demand will, no, Millie Meal is not aligning, because the increase will rise, and then the people who demand again will be more higher. So
Yeah.
that one is not aligning. Yeah.
but it can align in the sense that as your income goes up, you find that your desire to have Shima probably goes down because you're able to buy fast food in that line.
I like your line of thought. It depends also on your preferences because people, no matter how rich you are, like short. But the point I'm trying to bring is that there are goods that you demand less of, which are called inferior goods as your lifestyle goes up. For instance, secondhand clothes or a black and white TV or certain kinds of cars. If your income goes up, you demand less of those, and not because you can't afford, but you can now afford better. So we call that the income effect, and those goods, we deem them inferior goods. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Then we have necessities and goods we cannot do without. These are the basic needs that we have, like food, shelter, comfort, or luxuries are goods that we go for after the necessities. There are two things we can do away with if we wanted, like an aircon. It's not a necessity per se, but your lifestyle has gone up. You want to demand or to go for an upgrade. So also taste is another factor that will affect your demand because what you wear, all right, what you eat is an issue of taste. So these ones will change over time due to fashion and advertisements, habits, family composition, etc. So today we live in a fashionable world. Everything that comes new, people want to keep up appearances. And so we want to look at taste as a factor. In taste, there are effects that you need to understand. There's what we call a bandwagon effect, where people demonstrate in the sense that the buyer want to have a good, not because they really want to, but because others are having it. So this individual is conditioned to other people's consumption. So you are wearing ripped jeans because all the ladies are wearing ripped jeans. So it's a bandwagon effect on taste. We also have an effect which we call the snob effect. This comes about because of prestige, where consumers undergo a change to discover increases in certain commodities. These goods are only attractive if you're the only one wearing. I've seen people who, to some extent, if you wear the t-shirt and somebody's wearing it, you throw it because you've seen somebody wearing what you're wearing. So we call that the snob effect, where you want to be the only one. As long as you're the only one who has it, then it will be an advantage. So there are certain boutiques that just bring in two clothes or two shorts so that you're the only one in that. So, and very expensive. I'd rather buy rubbish stuff that is unique. The other one is a Veblen effect, where goods are not only unique, but they're highly priced to deter lower ones from affording, on to leave the upper mwambas. So these goods like a Lamborghini, We call them Veblen, named after an economist, Constantine Veblen. So these are factors that affect demand that you need to know. Is that clear? Are there any questions? Are we clear? So also other factors that will affect your demand may include the following: size, level of income, sociological factors, and weather conditions. So I want you to explain how you understand that size and composition of population will affect the demand. Okay, so other factors that may affect demand could be the size and the composition of the population. And population, you may discover that it has old people who are working class, some young people who are excess. So you need to know the population composition. Certain goods will only go well in a composition for high earning income people. Some commodities, if you take them to PHI, will not sell because of the composition of people, because this also moves their level of income and distribution. Some could do with sociological factors in terms of population, because of how their upbringing has been. They may not buy certain goods no matter what. This may also go with custom. Certain goods are not appealing for vegetarians or Christians, and also weather conditions may also affect demand, assuming that you are only buying ice, cold stuff when it's hot. So it's becoming shocking that people still have ice cream when it's raining. Certain goods do well with the weather, appealing to certain particular commodities. Advertisement, government policy, expectations of future prices, trade conditions, and consumer credit facility interests. All these are factors that affect your demand. So we end here for today. Unless there are any questions.